Hey guys, welcome to this week's edition of Netready Facebook Live Events. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us for this session. This week we're discussing an important topic. One of the biggest, if not the biggest decision that you need to be making is choosing the right software partner. In studio with me today, we've got none other than Mr. Richard Sletcher.
Just for a change.
Just for a change. We thought we'd just adapt
Mix it up a bit.
Richard, thanks so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Really appreciate your time. Coming into the office, spending this dedicated time with me. I'm learning a lot. Everyone out there is learning a lot. You're providing some awesome content in this very intricate industry that we call multi-level marketing. It's exciting. We love it. We'll never leave this space because of the powers and the benefits here. Today we're going to be speaking about choosing your MLM software. So let's take a dive into it.
Excellent.
Okay. The first question I've got for you is, when looking for a software partner, what are we looking for? What are the key things to keep in mind when looking for this partner of ours?
Well, look, there's a couple of things here. The first thing is that your two biggest decisions you'll ever make within a multi-level marketing space is what compensation plan you use and what software partner you choose. And the key thing when you're choosing a software partner, you need to realize that your entire business stands and falls on the shoulders of that software. So when you're choosing a software partner, you're making a massive decision. So you can't just shoot from the hip and just take the cheapest guy or whatever. You've actually got to do your homework and make sure that the system you're getting and the person who is behind that company actually knows what they're doing. So what I would do if I were looking for a software package to run my MLM business, the first thing I would do is I would want to know who the people are, how long they've been going, who their clients are, do they have any decent clients on their list, and then, of course, what kind of size businesses have they been able to work with. So that's the first thing I would kind of be looking at, because at the end of the day, the fundamental thing is you need the software to calculate your commissions. That's the number one issue. But if that business goes bankrupt, or you lose access to the code, or you can't get access to your database, or the company decides to hold you hostage, and I've got a ton of horror stories I can talk to you about, then you're in real trouble, because everything is running. All your data is running on that software. So I'll give you an example. One of our clients had this company who he got a guy to write his software for him. Now, the software worked. There was no problem. It was calculating commissions, all the rest of it. But then the guy decided that he wanted to have a share of the business, because in his idea, everything was dependent on his software. So he said to the guy, listen, I want 15% of your company because you're running on my software. The guy said to him, no. He said, well, then I'm turning off the software. So he now held this guy hostage. So can you imagine the stress? And I mean, this guy's now one of our biggest clients. But the stress that he went through because of this guy holding him hostage. Now, to get the data out of this guy required a court case. So they had to sue. They had to push the guy to give them the data. Now, in the meantime, they're not running the business. So when I say you need to be careful about who your partner is, it's really tough. I mean, we got another client who was working with an Indian company. Now, again, nothing against the Indian companies. There's some brilliant companies out there, and we've actually got some Indian developers who I'm extremely fond of. So I'm not kind of getting at this at all. But the issue is that the same thing. The company went bankrupt. They went under. All of the data was sitting with this Indian company. There was no way to access the data. The servers were taken online. The company just flushed. That was it.
Wow.
So when I say you need to know who you're dealing with, your entire business runs on the software. So if you don't have the right partners, if something happens to their company and they go under, or the software isn't stable, or you need to get hold of the guy and you can't, I mean, those are all critical issues. Wow. And the mistake is that guys go into this, they're starting their business, and they start thinking about what they need software, and then they go price shopping. So their primary goal is, hey, how do I get the cheapest solution here? And the next sentence they say is, once we get going, we can always upgrade onto a decent system. Well, man, that is a bad idea. You know, you're better off finding a partner who's prepared to help you and grow you into their system than finding somebody who's got a small system which you're going to try and migrate off of. Because
I get this question a lot. Stu, I actually don't have the capital right now to get onto the Netready system. Let me adopt a cheaper version so that I can start building up the business, building up capital, and then be able to afford the Netready system, the platform, so that I can have access to all the functionality. Now, I always guide, as you're saying now, into adopting the Netready platform, because migrating is just, it's the tap analogy.
Yeah.
I love this one.
Well, it's more, if you're successful, it's more like trying to change a fire hydrant without turning off the mains, the water supply.
Yeah.
Because you're under pressure. So what's happening? If you're not successful, it doesn't matter. Any system is good enough.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So if the business fails, hey, you can run your business on a spreadsheet.
Sure.
Business fails, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The problem doesn't arise when you fail. The problem arises when you get success. Now, we've got clients who literally within a 7 or 8 month period have gone to sort of $3, $4, $5 million a month in turnover. Now, that means that there are thousands and thousands of orders coming in. They're signing up thousands of people literally every month. 5,000, 10,000 people are joining their business. So this business is under huge pressure. The business is growing. The company's dealing with a lot of issues. They're trying to get their supply lines right. So supply chain issues are huge, because now they sold $1 million 2 months ago, $2 million last month, $4 million this month. So they get this exponential pull on their product. So you can imagine all of the pressures around supply chain. So they've got massive problems there.
Yeah.
Then they've got all of the pressures around people, because they've signed up 30, 40, 50,000 people over that time, and they're having to make sure that training is happening. So there's all of those kind of pressures. Then there's the financial pressures, because they're having to fund everything and fund this growth that is just ballooning out of all proportion. Now they discovered their little system they bought needs to be migrated onto something bigger. Now, can you imagine the pressure that puts onto you? And you can't just turn it off here, spend 4 days migrating and turn it on again, because you might have $100,000, $200,000 a day coming in orders. You got people signing up. And you can imagine the credibility damage, the damage to the reputational damage if your system is just down. So, and then you get onto a new system, and of course there's all the teething problems of a new system. I mean, these IT systems, especially when you move onto a big system like Netready, these are huge systems, and normally it takes 6 to 8 weeks to set a system like that up for our clients. Now you migrate your data in, you've got to test that data all came in right. It is a flipping nightmare with a capital F. It's a huge problem. So I say to my clients, listen, rather than going that route, as you know, we've got our ignition program where we get the guys onto our systems and allow them to scale with the systems as time goes by. And I say to them that is a much better plan. You can find a cheap system. There's systems where you can pay like peanuts to get onto them. But the cost of getting off of them is just prohibitive, and it can sink you. I mean, literally can sink the business. Yeah. Especially if you get to a point where the system is crashing and not able to deal with it. And now you've got to migrate. Now you're dealing with a system that's broken, and you're trying to migrate onto a proper system while dealing with all of those other issues out there. So, yeah.
The key take out there is that any system will do. You can go into any system.
If you fail.
If you fail. Okay?
Yeah.
But if you are a successful company, you need a system that's going to handle the volume of transactions, handle the complete fulfillment. We're going to go into the functionality, but be able to handle every single aspect of your MLM business. So why choose based on price?
And the other thing is you need a team that is going to respond to problems. Because look, this is IT. And as I said to you on previous occasions, to err is human. To screw up completely, you need IT. So this is the one space where you can absolutely be guaranteed that things will go wrong. I mean, I remember seeing Bill Gates introducing Windows.
Yes.
Now, they're a massive company. They've got an infinite amount of money. There's no shortage of money. He pulls up Windows and he gets a blue screen. And so Windows blue screened in his demo while he was launching it. So even companies like Microsoft. I went onto the bank the other day, tried to transfer cash. Sorry, we have a problem. Please try again later.
Sure.
Now, these are the banks. They're dealing with your cash. They've got a massive team of developers there They're running on the top software in the world. They're running on things like SAP or JD Edwards or Oracle.
Yes.
Top systems. There's bugs. So the point that I'm trying to make is there's always going to be bugs, guaranteed. That's something doesn't matter what system you get. The issue is that how does the team respond to those bugs when they happen? Can you get in touch with somebody and say, listen, I've got this problem, and then are they agile enough to respond instantly to your problems and fix them?
Sure, yeah.
And so that would be the other side of things, that when you're looking at your software partners, that they are agile and able to actually respond to any problems that you're having quickly.
Okay. Price was always a conversation that I was having with clients when they were looking to come on board with Netready. The other thing was, why don't I just build my own bespoke system? I can get a developer to do this for me. I can tell them what I want, and I can just build the system. What is the issues with doing something like that rather than coming on board with using Netready as an example, our system?
Well, look, that's the way most companies were doing it 20, 25 years ago. Before the advent of the internet and all of that, guys were getting bespoke developers into their offices, and those guys were sitting and writing the software for them. Yeah. The challenge is, though, that those companies today are all sitting with legacy software, which does what it does, but obviously hasn't been able to keep pace with the rapid, explosive growth of technology. And so when you've got your own team in, there's a couple of things. Is first of all, how do you keep up? You're man alone. You've got this one company trying to fund all of the development that's going into it.
Yeah.
It's much better to be part of a team of people where you've got 50, 60, 100 customers all putting money into making this product, keeping the product up with modern trends, and actually making the product viable for all of them. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is that to get a proper developer or development team is expensive. We're paying on average about $8,000 a month for a developer. So that's an expensive exercise. Now, you can't have one developer. You need a couple of developers.
Sure.
Then you need a tester. You need at least one tester to make sure that everything is working. Then you need somebody who's doing your UI design, because the person who's doing the UI design is a creative person. The developer is a logical or logical thinker, let's call it.
Yes.
They're not creative. They're the opposite of creative. So you'll see a lot of systems that developed by developers look horrible.
Yes.
Because obviously that's not their skill set.
Yeah.
So you've got your testers, you've got your UI designers, you've got at least 2 developers, and those developers have to be good because they're doing everything from the data development. They're full spectrum developers. They're doing everything from your database development to all of the SQL stuff that's writing to the C# or whatever you're writing your front end in, and then to the UI development. So they need to know JavaScript and JSON and all of that stuff. So there's a whole slew of skills that they have, and those guys are expensive. Now, you as a company are sitting covering those expenses. So you're probably looking at about $20,000 to $25,000 a month if you want a decent team to do this. So you decide, no, okay, not going to do that. So you get your brother's uncle's friend's son, who will charge you only $1,000 a month, and you get him in, or you go to online and you find some dude on Upwork or one of those places, and you try and get him to write your systems for you. And then you'll end up with a horrible system that doesn't work, that doesn't scale, and then you'll end up migrating onto a system like Netready down the road. So the issue is that I would highly recommend that you stick to your knitting as a customer. You don't want to be a development company. Why would you want to do that? Exactly. Rather take a portion, a small percentage of your turnover, and allocate that to a company that does nothing else. This is all they do. A company like Netready, it can be any company. It doesn't have to be Netready, whatever company out there you find. But that's what they do. And they are funded by a lot of companies who are all pouring money into a single pot. So instead of you having to come up with $25,000 or $30,000, Netready might have a $70,000 burn rate. That's fine. But there's 100 companies all contributing to that pot.
Yeah.
So suddenly, on the 70,000, each company's what their contribution is $700 or $800 towards that development. And then the second thing, which is more important, is you got 100 brains from 100 different company CEOs,
Brilliant.
all coming up with like killer ideas that you didn't even think of. And they'll come to us and say, hey, we need this killer thing to be built into the system. We evaluate that, and if we think that it's a worthwhile addition, we build it into the system. The beauty is you get to use it. So they fund it. They come and do some custom development with us. It's all funded. But then every one of the clients actually gets the benefit of whatever that development is.
Yeah.
And so that's why I would say to any company, if you're serious about your MLM business, rather get a proper MLM company to partner with you and provide you with the software.
So bespoke systems can be expensive, a lot of frustration. It's time consuming because it's not part of what you're doing as a core business.
Exactly.
And it leads to a legacy system over time.
Yeah, of course, it has to.
But coming into an MLM-focused software system, people that are dedicated to running this, upgrading it, having clients upgrade as and when, you'll have access to all these upgrades, be current with whatever's happening in the market at the time, all the functionality. I mean, it makes sense to then veer away from something like a bespoke system.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's get into that functionality.
Okay.
What I'd like to do is I want to split it into administration area, that for the business owner, and the network marketer. What does the network marketer get from the software? Okay, so let's quickly touch on what a business owner, the administrative area would look like, or what needs to happen within that area.
Well, the first thing is I'm a believer that you need to have a single core into fully integrated system. So if you have a look at how most companies currently are doing it, they will have a big commerce e-commerce platform, and then they will be using a Zendesk type customer relations management system, and then they'll be using something like MailChimp to do their emailing and the communication. And what they do is they take all of these various systems and they try and get these systems to talk to each other. So I'm not a fan of that at all, because I think that if you're going to run a serious business, you need a centralized database so that you can mine that data effectively and use it internally within the system. So the first thing that I say to clients is, look, you can go and get 20 different systems and try and sort of string them together with bubblegum and string, or you can get a single, fully integrated, single database core system that's going to run your whole business end to end. So if I have a look at the back end, for example, in the Netready system, one of the things that we've done is we've said, okay, let's have a look at what companies are using out there. And we've seen, okay, companies have got an e-commerce platform, they've got a customer relations management system, or ticketing system, whatever you want to call it. They've got a communication engine. They've got mechanisms to run incentives and recognition. They've got reporting engines to build dashboards and to get the insights into their data. They've got landing page mechanisms to run landing pages, etc. They've got integration mechanisms to integrate with third-party products. So when we looked at what people were doing, we said, okay, we have to look at the best of all of these companies, and when we build our system, the very best of each of these touch points needs to be in our system.
Right.
So, for example, when we looked at e-commerce, we went and looked at all the top e-commerce platforms out there. We said, what are they doing well? What are they doing badly? And when we scoped out our e-commerce system, we actually wrote down a list of all of the things that were wonderful. And wherever something was bad, we said to ourselves, how can we improve that? And so when we built our e-commerce platform, it was not just to be a way to sell the product, but it was to be a way to compete with the best e-commerce platforms out there and blow them away. Okay, now that's a massive order, because obviously there's some very good e-commerce platforms out there.
Yeah.
You know, you have a look at BigCommerce and those things, they're brilliant platforms. Then the second thing was to look at, for example, our customer relations management system. We had a look at top CRM systems out there, and we said, okay, what are they doing? What do they do well? What do they do badly? And we built it into the system. And then we did the same thing for
all the other verticals.
Well, email communication. I mean, email is a prime example.
Huge. Yeah.
You can use MailChimp. Brilliant platform. Nothing wrong with it. But can you imagine if you are in the system and you can say, hey, Stuart, I saw you bought X amount of stuff last month. By the way, you get this many points from it, which means that if you just do this and this, you're going to go from position 3 to position 2 in our incentive. Now, what we're doing is we're communicating. We know where the person is in the incentive.
Yes.
We know what his rank is. We know what products he's bought. We know how many points he's got. We know everything about this person. And so I can talk to this person exactly where they are in the business just by mining the data, just by filtering the data and say, hey, give me everybody who's at position or in the incentives, who's in the top 10 of the incentives, who's got X amount of points. And I can actually write a filter very easily to communicate with that person because all the data's there.
Sure.
So
and the benefit is that you set it up once, it's automated communication that will go to that person, to Stuart, when I hit the rules and the restrictions of what you've set up.
Well, the beautiful thing is, and I mean, on one of our previous conversations, we talked about incentives. I mean, the beautiful thing there is, hey, Stuart, you're in position 20 of our incentive, which means you're coming with us at the moment. But I want to just tell you that Richard is only 5 points away from bumping you out of the competition completely. Yes. So you need to get onto it. And then Richard gets an email saying, hey, Richard, you only need 5 points to come with us to Mauritius. So the issue is there. It's a real-time communication because you've got a single data source. Now, we can talk about every single aspect of this. When the person goes into the customer relations management system, you want to click on a button and take it straight through to his commissions, or click on a button, go and see why his banking details are incorrect. And all of that, if it's built into a centralized system, you've got access to all of the data instantly. So it makes your support so much easier. Hey, I didn't get my commission. Boom, let's go and have a look at the commission. Okay, you were due that much. Click. Okay, we can see what the problem is. You didn't get it because your banking details failed. So the support person has got access, because the central database got access to all the data related to that person. So it makes support so much easier. And we can go through all of the different places. You don't, reporting, you want the reporting to be real time on all aspects of the business. You want to be able to see how your support people are handling the support. How long is it taking them to answer tickets? How many tickets they're answering? What is the general response time? But at the same time, you want to see on the same dashboard maybe what your sales are doing, or how many people have been recruited into the business, or how many emails have failed, or do you have any failed SMSs? Do you have orders that aren't going out? You want that all in one central dashboard. Now, we've seen people who are running multiple systems. Now they're going to the e-commerce dashboard and the customer relations, and they've got these different systems, and they have to log in here and then log in there and then log in. I mean, it's a nightmare. You want to be able to sit in one dashboard, get a view of all of the information going on in your business.
Sure.
And be able to pick the problems out instantly.
Business is already hard. Why make it harder when you string all these systems together with bubblegum and string? Yeah,
so again, going back to functionality, if I was looking for a system right now, functionality is a key thing. I would want it to have an e-commerce platform. I would want it to have very sophisticated management systems for the genealogy. I would want to be able to run multiple genealogies. I'd want to have a customer relations management system that's fully integrated. I'd want to have incentives and recognitions. Obviously, we need to be able to calculate commissions. I would want to have a very sophisticated and slick reporting engine so that I can see whatever data I want. So all of these things come
as well
into
as marketing. Marketing a big part of it.
Well, we haven't even touched on that because we're going to talk about it in the back office. But yes, having landing page engines and mechanisms to drive engagement with potential customers or potential new recruits, very, very important.
That's sort of 30,000 feet on what functionality you should be looking for with an MLM software. Can we dive into a couple of those? Because I think it's quite important to understand what to look for within those engines. Yes, a software may have the verticals, but let's just go into this. So let's talk about something like the websites. This integrated web presence. Let's quickly just dive into that.
So an interesting thing there is a lot of clients who've come to us from other systems, they traditionally run their websites on an alternate platform. What's this famous one?
WordPress.
So they'll have this WordPress website, and that's where everything happens, and they try and manage all of the integrations through that. Now, what my opinion is you have to have an integrated web engine. So the system needs to be able to put out the website, and you need to be able to design it better than any other platform out there. So one of the things that we did is we looked at all of the top web design mechanisms out there, things like the WordPress, etc. Exactly, all of those things, and we said, okay, how can we do it better? So I think that we've got I personally think we got the most epic web designer out there. But the beauty of it is that every time somebody comes to the system, they're coming to one URL, they're hitting one system, the data is all sitting there. So, for example, for giving replicated websites, it's all inside the system. So when the person comes to the website, we deliver the web page, and then based on the URL, we can say, hey, welcome to Stuart's website. Or, hey, welcome to my website. This is what I look like. Picture of me pops up.
Yes.
And when the person purchases of that website, that customer's automatically logged to them. So now what you can do is you can create marketing strategies using that replicated web link. And so every single agent can be actually marketing that website, bringing people to the website, and then taking them through the process. And you need that to be very user-friendly, because what you want is you want your customers to say, okay, I'm setting up a new landing page because I'm launching this new product. I'm going to be doing this advertising out there, and I want to drive people to that page. And they must be able to go click, 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 choose this template, drop it on here, put the pictures in there, form in there, right, we're up and running.
Exactly.
It needs to be a simple, easy process. What you want to avoid is, we need a new page. Let's get a hold of the development team. Okay, there's the scope of the page. Fantastic. This is what it's going to cost you. Okay, spend lots of money, and we give you your new website page.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to be away from that completely. You want to be able to just do the stuff yourself. So the web engine, I think, is a key feature that you need to be looking for in your system.
Sure. Okay. I mean, you spoke about this driving traffic to the replicated websites. We do that through the marketing engine. So again, the system speaks to itself. So let's talk about the marketing engine built.
Okay, so you've with landing pages, if you have a look at the top funneling systems out there, the way that they work is they'll give you A/B tests. You create your funnels, you create your messaging. The person comes and puts the information in there. They'll take you to a thank you page. It will allow you to put your pixels into it and track who's been to what part of the process, and obviously drive an entire funnel or process flow through it.
Yeah.
Now, most companies are using external funneling systems, and that's one of the things that we thought was critically important, is to create a funneling system that allowed you as an agent, an IBO, to advertise the funnel out there with your IBO link, drive your advertising budget, drive people to that funnel, and then suck them into your network. Now, what that allows you to do is it allows the company to leverage the spend of every single one of their IBOs. So let's say we said to you, okay, contribute $10 to a
pooled
campaign.
marketing investment.
Okay, and so if you've got 1,000 people, each spending $10, you've got $10,000, you're advertising, you can drive people to those landing pages, and you can divide them up depending on the URLs that are used, or depending on how those people flow into the system, or their geographic location, or anything like that. So those landing page engines are critically important to the overall play when it comes to leveraging your network's advertising and marketing spend.
Wow.
You know,
I mean, through these funnels and this marketing investment, this pooled fund, you could be getting customers coming into your platform through digital efforts, that your websites, through these digital efforts that you don't know, because you've advertised opportunity, and I'm getting customer sales. I've never met this person before. So It's moving away from the traditional MLM space where I'm having to go out and speak to my friends and family about getting them, recruiting them, or getting them to purchase my products. Now we are activating, throwing the net out wider, and getting people who don't even know.
Yeah, and look, the whole idea, again, going back to your software, what we've got to realize is the world is changing. 20 years ago when I got started, or 30 years ago when I got started in multi-level marketing, there was no such thing as the internet out there.
Sure.
So the way that MLM was done, it's belly to belly. You'd go out, you'd see a person, you'd show them the products, they'd buy them from you. Now, I'm not saying that's gone away. I think that's still a critical part of MLM, and I think that every single person who joins an MLM team needs to understand that side of the business really well. But the flip side of that coin is that the whole e-commerce play is coming into vogue, let's call it, where people are now used to buying online, where they don't necessarily want to go out and get their friend to sit down with them and show them the product. And once they know about the product, they don't necessarily want to phone their friend to get the product delivered. So the e-commerce play is becoming a very important part. And so your systems need to have the funnels and all of the processes that leverage everything e-commerce And we did a whole talk about that last week on leveraging traditional
e-commerce strategies.
Well, retail strategies within the MLM space. So I think that those funnels and the leveraging of the advertising and marketing budget of your members and having an e-commerce platform that can then divide those members up and provide those customers to different people. Those are all features that I would actually say are critically important.
Okay. Once a customer's purchased from the e-commerce websites, then it filters into our order management system. What needs to happen in that vertical?
Yeah, so that's a good point, because acquiring the customer and acquiring the sale is point number one, but fulfilling on that is point number two.
Yes.
So there's a couple of ways that we see this happening. Number one is having your own warehouse management system built into the platform. We have that in process where the picking slips are printed, people go and pick it, they can scan those picking slips, mark them as picked, mark them as packed, and then print out the weighable numbers or the weightables and ship them out. And that process is tracked through the entire system. So you as a company owner can check at any time which point you're at. So that is critically important. But there's a number of companies, and I recommend this because, again, your core business is not warehousing. So warehouse management is not your core business. So there are companies out there that specialize in warehouse management. So you take your products, you deliver your products to the warehouse, and then our systems, or whoever systems you're using, it doesn't have to be our systems, obviously, would then instruct that company to pick, pack, and ship the product. Now, I did this when I was running Acorn Kids, and that was fantastic, because what would happen is that the order would come in. Bespoke, who's the company that was handling it for us, would pick it, pack it, and ship it. It would go directly to the client, so I hadn't seen the product at this point. And when the system reached minimum volumes, the system would automatically generate an order to the manufacturer to manufacture more products.
Wow.
So what would happen is that entire process was automated. Our minimum volumes were set to such a level that we never run out of stock. We knew what our lead times were. We knew how many products we had. So we would literally have an order going through to the manufacturer on a weekly basis saying we need 10,000 of this, 20,000 of that, And they would literally be manufacturing the products this week. They would be going out and the next order would be coming in, and the system was just rolling over. So it was a fully automated process.
Brilliant.
So those are both ways of doing it. You can either do it in-house and instruct whoever's doing your manufacturing, or maybe you're manufacturing your own product, have a report that says, okay, we need to manufacture these items this week. Or you could completely outsource this thing. And when I was running Acorn Kids, we first started off with our own warehousing and our own support team, and the whole catastrophe. We had big offices. By the time we got to really running Acorn Kids successfully, we had 3 people who were handling queries related to the products or the compensation plan, and we're shipping like 10 tons of product a day out of our Bespoke warehouses.
Wow.
And I didn't see the product. Wow. If there was a quality issue, we'd hear about it sharp. I'd said the definition of a split second is the time it takes for a person to receive a defective product and phone us. That was a split second, because you hear about quality issues very quickly.
Yeah.
So those are both options in terms of that the system needs to be able to maintain.
Would you suggest doing that when you launch a business, controlling your own warehouse and everything that happens within it and out? Once you scale, adopting a ERP management system that manages the warehouse, something like the Bespoke example?
Yeah, look, I think that when you start out, because your volumes are quite small in the beginning, you should do it yourself. Okay. Because it becomes horrendously expensive if you're trying to do very low volumes out of a warehouse solution.
Yeah.
But once you've got traction, it actually is cheaper. And because it is a variable cost, when you have a dip in, say, you have a dip in December or in Easter, your costs go down directly in proportion with the dip in sales.
Yeah.
So you might pay a little bit more in the good times, but you pay less in the bad times. So on average, we found that we saved about 20% on costs when we moved from having our own warehouse to going into a Bespoke solution in our case. The other thing that I found is that my hair stopped going grey. I mean, all of the grey hairs you see here is
Yes.
from running the staff in the warehouse. It was a nightmare, because a couple of things that we noticed is that all of our stock had its own fully automated, functional transport system. We'd put it on the shelf and it would transport itself out of the door while we weren't watching.
Oh, yes, of course.
And it would just disappear. And shrinkage was crazy.
Yeah.
You know, and
Wow.
we implemented all sorts of mechanism to try and find out what was happening.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
You know, and so normally these big warehousing companies guarantee you zero shrinkage.
Wow.
So if something goes missing, they pay for it. Mm-hmm. And that saves you a fortune, because we were losing a shed load of product in terms of shrinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shrinkage, they call it theft. But it's the nice
Yeah. It sounds better.
euphemism
Shrinkage.
for shrinkage. Yeah.
Let's say an RBO
Yes.
or a customer has an issue with the delivery. I'm finding the segues here into the next functionality. Is they've got an issue. How do they then make contact with the system and the support staff? That's done through a customer relations management tool that should be built into every MLM software.
Yeah, so generally what happens is that you give each member or each RBO their own back office, where everything pertaining to their network is visible. So they can see their downline, they can see their own orders, they can see their commissions, they can see the commissions of the network below them, they can see what sales are happening. So in order for them to manage their team, they need access to all of this information, which is cool. And then part of that would be that they would have a ticketing system where if they've got a problem, they can literally log a ticket with the company. Now, we obviously highly recommend that you don't have phone lines where people can pick up the phone, because those can be, you know, if you've got 10,000 people and each of them just wants one phone call a month, you're trying to field 10,000 calls.
Yeah.
It's not doable. So we recommend that we get the guys to interact with the company via the ticketing system. They log a ticket. The company has got a team of people who will go through those tickets and answer the tickets. And generally, there's some form of knowledge base where they can grab the knowledge, drop it into the ticket, and ship it off. So it makes the answer very quick. And they can answer hundreds of tickets in the time it would have taken them to field a couple of phone calls.
Sure.
So that the customer relations management system, again, integrated so that the company is able to talk to their clients and their clients can talk to the company. In terms of the phone calls, I would say that, people who are at the top ranks get the privilege of being able to phone in if there's an issue.
Okay.
But generally by that time, the phone calls are few and far between because they understand how everything works.
Exactly. Okay. What are key elements to have in that CRM system? We need to understand the transactional history of the conversation that we've had with that RBO or that customer. We need to know all details on who that RBO or customer is. So they have to have a profile section where they list where they are in the country, across the world, all of the information, the shipping details, their address. All that information is built into a CRM system so that the ticketing support personnel can answer those questions that the RBO or the customer is asking.
Exactly right.
With authority.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
So that's, as I was saying earlier on, when you're in the CRM system, you need to access all the data.
Everything.
Instantly. Yeah. And without having to log in, if you need to know, the guy says, I didn't receive my order, you need to be able to click on a link and see his order and say to him, okay, I can see that the order's been packed. It's actually sitting with the dispatch. It's going out today, or it was dispatched. This is the waybill number which was sent to you, but let's track it. They click on the waybill number. They see exactly where it is in the process. You should have received it. Somebody signed for it. Whatever the process is, they need to have instant access to all of that information so that when they're helping the client, they're not having to dig for it. So that is obviously key to running a successful MLM business.
Okay. Let's speak about the commission calculator and how that whole system actually works. The calculating of commissions according to the compensation plan, and then how we pay out commissions whenever the payment run is. If it's on the 10th or the 15th of the month, we'll close that off. So let's speak about that. And then when payments are actually supposed to be going out. How does that whole system work?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things around compensation plan. Obviously, it has to be accurate. You can't have mistakes there. This is real money you're dealing with. And then the second thing is that mistakes happen. So I recruit you. You didn't use my link. Now you land up in Pit Pompey's network. And when I go to look for you, you're not there. So I don't get my commissions for you. So we're sitting in month 1, and in month 2, I'm looking, there's no commissions. I need to be able to phone up the company or log a ticket to the company and say, listen, Stuart is not in my team. They go and look it up. Stuart's been put in the wrong place. They need to be able to move that person and then recalculate the commissions. So one of the reasons why you're saying you shut off the commissions on the 31st of the month or the last day of the month, and then you give yourself time to audit and make changes. And you've got to be able to do that. You've got to be able to change it. Now, in order to do that, you don't want to have a compensation plan that takes 19 hours to run.
Sure.
So your compensation plan needs to run in seconds, not in hours. Now, that's a place where we've paid our school fees, I have to say. Our first client who scaled, as they scaled, their time that it took for the compensation plan to run actually scaled exponentially.
Oh, wow.
And it got to a point where literally the system just fell over. And so we learned how to actually make those compensation plans run in like seconds. We've done tests on our system where we've got 100,000 people all doing 10 or 20 orders a month, and the compensation plan runs in under a minute. So,
wow.
That's the kind of thing you want, because when you're recalculating, what you don't want to do is put the whole system under stress for 2 hours while the compensation plan calculates and nobody else can actually get in.
Sure.
So part of that whole thing is how efficient is that comp plan? How does it scale? If you scale your people and on your orders, are you getting an exponential slowdown or is it just linear? So what you want is you want a situation where it's linear. You don't want it to do that. So okay, if it took you 1 minute to calculate 1 million orders, it will take you 2 minutes to calculate 2 million orders.
Cool.
You don't want it to have 1 minute to calculate 1 million orders and an hour to calculate 2 million orders. That's where the problems come in. So there's strategies around that in terms of the compensation plan, and those are key issues in terms of deciding on a system and what system you're going for. Is how does that curve look when you scale the business? How does that calculation curve look? Yeah.
Okay. Everything we do within the system, it needs to be seamless and needs to be automated. The same thing goes out with paying out the commissions. So once we've calculated, we've closed it off, we've finalized that all customers are in the right place, and we've locked down the commissions that each one of our agents is going to be earning. What happens from there on to actually paying out the amounts to the customers?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, you also want that automated if you can have it, but it's got to be audited. So you audit it. So you don't want to have a situation where the system just pays the money out.
Sure. Because
that's scary. Now you made a complete mess of it. So what I say to my clients is, first of all, you need to do a sanity check. We did $1 million turnover. We're paying out $400,000.
Sure.
So 40% commission. That's what we expect. There's sanity prevails. We're probably okay. We've got $1 million turnover. We're paying out $1.2 million in commission. Okay, there's a problem. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be that drastic. It can be a difference of 2 or 3%. It's now, instead of 40%, it's paying 43%. Well, there's a problem somewhere. We need to have a look at that, because if you're planning to pay out 40% and you're paying out 43%, something's wrong. So that's the first thing, is the sanity check. And the second thing then is to have some mechanism that says, okay, we're happy with this thing. We click the button, it's going to pay out. Now, from our side, we bring up a message saying, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. I just want to confirm that you're absolutely sure. You've audited this? Yes, I'm dead sure. I'm just letting you know that if you got it wrong, then it's your problem. Are you really sure? Not really. We don't do that. But you know what I mean.
Yes.
So the issue is, when you click that button, the system then ships the instruction to whichever organization you're using. If you're using a Payoneer, then it ships it to Payoneer and says, please disperse the money in this way. If you're using a bank, it ships it to the banking mechanisms. Some of them are pretty old and antiquated because they've got their in-house developers building them. So you've got these legacy systems where you have to FTP the folder.
Yes.
FTP the data into the folder, and then they take the CSV file and they disperse the monies. So there needs to be an automated process. Now, for the smaller companies, because of the cost of that, the smaller companies actually don't do that. They manually pay out. So they take their CSV file and they upload it to companies like Sage, and Sage then pays out the money for them.
Okay.
But once you get traction, you can have a Payoneer where every one of your members get their own card and where you can pay the money into that card and then everybody gets paid out via the credit card.
Yeah.
And there's a number of those kind of companies out there that handle that kind of thing.
Okay.
And that's an automated process. You want to keep it as smooth and as easy and smooth and painless as possible.
Sure.
Especially some companies are paying out on a weekly basis. Can you imagine it? I mean, the nightmare that if this thing is difficult to do, you know, but the beauty is once you know the comp plan works, generally you do a sanity check. Yes, it looks right. You pay out. Because if the comp plan's working, it works.
Sure.
You know, and then you don't have to sit and do a minutiae audit of every single compensation run. You get to trust that it works. There's no problems with it. Off you go.
Okay. Let's say, for instance, there's this perfect storm that happens in that month. And yes, we are planning to pay out 40%, but because of the storm and all the ways in which people can earn, we go to 42%, let's say. What is our contingency plan to that? Is there something that needs to be built into the system that can counter that?
Yeah.
What happens there?
So that's called normalization. So any decent system will have a normalization mechanism. So specifically compensation plans like binary plans
Yes.
can actually run away.
Yeah.
And you can actually have a situation where you're targeting 40%, but you land up with 45% as your payment. Now, what the system needs to be able to do is normalize that. So it says, okay, listen, we're paying out 45%. That's not right. We want to pay out a maximum of 40%. So what we're going to do is reduce everybody's commission across the board by a small percentage to bring it down to 40%. And that normalizes the compensation plan. Now, obviously, normalization, you need to build that into your terms and conditions.
Sure.
Everybody needs to know about it. But absolutely, you have to have that parachute because you don't want to be in a situation where you accidentally pay out
A 45%.
Well, that extra 5%, if we're talking about, let's say you're doing 100 million a year, so a 5% now becomes millions of dollars.
Yeah.
That, you know, you're paying out $5 million extra. I mean, that can be seriously damaging. What could you do with $5 million?
Yeah, a heck of a lot.
You know, you could have incentives, you could have recognition. I mean, that's serious money. So you got to be real careful. And so normalization, a key part of your system.
Okay, we're having so much fun. We've got about 12 minutes left.
How rude.
I know. Let's speak about incentives and recognition. Okay, in the system, we need to let's look at recognition. Let's start off there. Okay, what does that recognition engine need to look like, and what has to happen within it?
Well, the first thing is that it needs to be automated. So we've seen that with recognition, if it's not automated, it just doesn't happen. So there's a lot of different recognitions that you can have, but an example is using the communication engine. You could have recognition to say, Stuart, congratulations for recruiting Richard. Okay, so I recognize you. And that could be an automated process that the system just says, hey, well done for bringing Richard on board. Then you could generate recognition up the line. So let's say that Caleb was your upline. The system could send Caleb an email saying, hey, give Stuart a ring because he's just recruited Richard and congratulate him. And then why don't you call Richard and say, well done. Welcome to the team.
Yes.
Now, Caleb's upline is Kirsten. Now, Kirsten get an email as well. So now Kirsten will phone Caleb and say, hey, I see your team is doing really well. Congratulations. Phone Stuart and say, well done for bringing in Richard. Phone Richard, say, hey, welcome to the team.
Sure.
Can you see that that recognition process? Now, that costs the company an email, several emails, but it costs them the price of an email. But the value of that is huge because everybody in that upline, Richard gets 3 or 4 calls from the people up the line saying, hey, welcome, we're here to help you. You get told how wonderful you are several times. You get recognized for your effort, and everybody up the line is recognizing their team.
Sure.
But the other side of that is there's up motivation. So Kirsten is finding out that somebody new just joined her team. Now, what does that do for her?
Wow.
Like it pumps her up.
Yeah.
So that's a simple example of automating your recognition.
Yes.
But of course, you also want to have situations where you have reporting, or badges, like we're doing in our system, where you got a badge in the back office. So when a person signs up 2 people in a month, they get the recognition of being a pace setter, and they get the little pace setter logo on their network tree. So when I, as a leader, go and look down my tree, I can see all of the people who pay setters. Or the person is a star performer. They did over $5,000 of sales this month. So there it shows them they've got the little star performer badge. So being able to automate those and provide those badges as you go along. Now, there's two things to that. Number one, you need to set it up. So you need to have an engine to say, if somebody signs up 2 people in a month, I want to give them this badge. So that's the one side of things. And the second side of things is obviously once they get it, they need to be able to view their downline or their trophy case and see exactly what they're being recognized for at any given time.
Wow.
So I think that needs to be a fully automated, integrated process that the company doesn't have to worry about. Because if the company has to try and work out who needs to get recognition, it doesn't happen.
Sure.
You need to set it up, system needs to handle it.
There's a lot of psychology behind recognition, especially in the MLM space. I'm kind of bringing it home to that of, it's like it's Scouts.
Yes.
Where you get all your badges, or you get all your badges in your cap, and it's a privilege and honor to show off all the badges.
Exactly.
Now, when your team leader is looking at his genealogy and is seeing all the big players because they're all their badges, it's a visual on my team is performing, and I need to start picking up the phone and paying this guy more attention. Right. And so a recognition and having this part of an MLM software, I can see the importance there.
Yeah.
Let's quickly go into incentives.
Well, again, same thing. You need it automated. We've seen companies run incentives, and because it's not automated, how do you communicate where you are in the system?
Sure.
So you literally have to have a leaderboard. And the people on the leaderboard need to know where they are, because competition requires you to know where everybody else is. It's like a running race. If you're running by yourself, it's very difficult to hit world-class times. As soon as you're running with a group of people, everybody's pushing everybody to do better. You run that little bit faster, you push that little bit harder because there's people around you. The same thing in incentives. I need to know that I'm in position 7, and because I'm in position 7, I'm only going to get, a prime example is in our one. If you're in position 20 versus position 1 is a different scenario. In position 1, you're flying business class, you're in the executive suites, you're getting $1,000 spending money, blah, blah, blah. In position 20, you're coming with, but we're strapping you to the wing. When you get there, you've got a tent on the beach. And if you want to go to the toilet, well, here's a shovel. So you need to be able to structure that automatically. So if a person's in position 7, he knows exactly what his particular prize is. He also needs to know what he needs to do to get ahead of the person in front of him. Right. And if he does that, what prize would he be getting? And if he drops down, what prize will he be getting? And so what you want to do is you want to create an automated war. And you can only do that if it's automated. So you've got to automate it. You've got to have it in real time out there. You've got to be telling people where they are in the position and what they need to do to move up or down. And you need to also show them whether they've moved up or down. If you have a look at our leaderboard, it's a little green arrow if he's going up and a little red arrow if he's going down.
Yes,
so you can see exactly
and the number of places he's gone up or down.
Exactly,
Brilliant.
Green arrow moved up 3 places in the last week type thing. Yeah, absolutely.
20% of your network is driven by competition. Exactly. They have those people that are just wanting to win all the time. So we need to, and that's what the incentive engine is all about. Okay. That's the administrative area. Let's quickly touch on that of the members back office. Okay, and what's included in there? Quick run through.
Yeah, okay. So in the members back office, they need to access all of their own data. So the first thing is they need to know what their orders are, be able to change when their recurring dates are, if they've got any order ship products on there. They need to be able to see who in their network, any leads that have come into their system, they need to be able to see that. They need to be able to see their network and who's doing what in their network. They need to be able to drill into the dashboards of all of their network and have a dashboard of their own activities. So how they're performing month on month. Is their trend going up? How many people did they sign up last month versus this month? So those dashboards and that information, what you want to do is you want to provide them with a tremendous amount of information so that they know exactly where they are.
Sure.
Now, the key thing to remember here is that is a credibility issue for the company. If you've got a killer back office, when your IBO comes into the back office and sees all of this information, they think you're a killer company because that's the view of the company they've got.
Yes.
If they come into your back office and it's like a septic, useless thing, well, then that's what your business is. So in terms of the members' back office, a lot of attention needs to be paid to that, and you need to make sure that the right kind of information is being given to your members at any given time.
Wow. Beautiful. Okay. Yeah. Last thing, data storage and backups. What has to happen there?
Well, obviously you don't want your data going walkabout. So you need to be on a system where there's daily backups at least. So what most of the small clients are doing, and most of the companies out there, they'll provide a daily backup. And so at midnight or whatever the backup runs, it backs up the data for the day. So that means that if you lose data, you're only losing that one day of data. Obviously, as you grow and as the business scales, what you want to do is move into a more professional environment. You want to have, for example, you want to have failover systems. So you might be running two databases in side by side, and you want the databases to fail over. So if this system goes down,
sure,
nobody notices a difference. There's not a blip, and you can bring that system up again, and everything is working. And then the second thing is that you want to have real-time backups, and the way that works, well, within a serious database like a SQL Server, the way that it works is that you can restore the database to a specific second in time. So if the system goes down and you have like wholesale corruption, you literally can say, I want to, 1 second before it goes down, I want to restore it to that point. And so you can actually make sure you lose zero data in a scenario like that.
Wow.
But obviously, the more security you have, the higher your costs are. So when you're a small company doing $100,000 a month, you don't want to have an enterprise level solution that's costing you $200,000 a month. Well, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
But if you've got a company that's doing $20 or $30 million a month, then spending $100,000 on a secure system, it's a no-brainer.
Of course.
You know, losing a day's activity when you're doing $100 million, that's like serious.
Yeah.
So the issue is that you need, and again, this goes back to the system choice. I'm not a great believer on these open source platforms.
Okay.
You need a system that can scale from microscopic to full-blown enterprise level. And it's one of the reasons we've chosen SQL Server, is because you can start on SQL Server Web Edition, and then you can move right through sort of standard edition, and you can land up on a full enterprise level solution, where you can have a totally distributed database across multiple countries in multiple time zones. You can have total failover, 100% uptime, guaranteed no data loss. You know, obviously the cost of that is substantial, but your whole business is running on this. Everything depends on it. So again, it's the reason we've chosen SQL Server. Oracle is also an option in that space. There's a number of big databases that work there, but it's one of the reasons why we steered away from things like MySQL and stuff. You know, we needed a solution that was backed by a big company that is used to dealing with huge data. And as I said, we chose SQL Server. I would say that looking at what database your system runs on is a key decision maker. Again, if your business fails, any database is good enough. The issue is if you start becoming a big multinational with massive turnovers and millions of people, like you take an Avon, they did $11 billion last year.
Sure, yeah.
They've got how many people? I can't remember. 6.2 million people on the system. You can't run that on MySQL. I mean, you know. And if you want to run a serious business, you can't actually be thinking down that road. You've got to actually take it seriously from day one and get into technology that you know can scale.
Okay. Brilliant, Richard. Thank you so much. We've run out of time. We could actually talk about this forever.
I tell you what,
Oh, you're providing me with so much insight, and I know you're providing the rest of the people watching with this incredible insight into what we've spoken about today, which is choosing your MLM software. So I hope you've got what you wanted out of the session. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. I'm Stuart.
And I just need to say one last thing. Which camera are we on here?
We are on that one.
That camera. So it's really important to know that you can choose absolutely any system out there as long as it's Netready. No, I'm just...
This is what I was going to say. Exactly. Richard, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Guys, please follow us on all of our social channels. We've got our Facebook and LinkedIn accounts. Also got our YouTube channel, which is Netready, and we've got our LinkedIn, Netready MLM software. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. See you next week.
Cheers.